Hey guys, if you're just joining me, the live has ended. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make epoxy coasters. You can use these for like jewelry dishes, or you can use them for drink coasters. However you want to use them. They're really cheap to make, they're a fun gift to give, or they're good to offer to your customers. So I just want to make sure that this is going on good. I hope everybody's having a good week. It is raining cats and dogs here in Alabama. Hey Caitlin, we might get washed away. I'm not sure. You'll have to watch the news and see if Alabama just floats itself off of the United States. It might happen, and if there is a chance of it happening, it would be today or this week sometime. So I know you guys, some of you know that I've had the flu, so if I have a couple sniffles, please forgive me. The baby had it last week, and then I was graced with it, and it has been a wild weekend. Matt has had his hands full, and he took such good care of both of us. So we are on the mend. Mayor is back at school today, and I am back at work. So hey everybody, I am feeling a lot better. The flu is no joke, guys. It takes a toll on you. So we're in the house today, not in the shop, because it is raining so hard, and it has a tin roof on it, and I was afraid that it might wash me out. It might be annoying, or you might not be able to hear me clearly. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys had the best quality video. So for this tutorial on this Tuesday, we're going to be doing the epoxy molds, and this is a great first epoxy experience if you've never had experience with epoxy before, or if you feel intimidated, or if you're unsure about it. There are safety precautions with epoxy. You want to make sure that you are wearing gloves when you use epoxy, when you mix epoxy, when you do anything with epoxy. You want to make sure that you are in a well-ventilated area. So I am doing this in my house, in my kitchen, and none of us have ever had a reaction to the epoxy before. So there are a couple things, since I told you guys that I need, that I forgot. So hold on. Matt! I gotta call him all the time. I'm sorry. I try to be like so prepared, but sometimes I'm just not. I need a bowl of warm water, and I need my gloves. I'm sorry. Matt's such a good sport. Yeah, and like super, super warm, because our hot water doesn't get like extremely hot. Okay, so sorry about that. I guess hot as it'll go for us, because like I said, our water temperature does not get scalded. You just want a bowl of warm water, and this is a trick. This part is optional. You may or may not see this on videos that you watch. I may or may not have put this on a video. I'll tell you, what I'm teaching you today and what I'm showing you today are my up-to-date, most recommended ways of doing things. Thank you so much, and a pair of gloves, because I forgot where they usually go. So as I'm learning things, I kind of, pass that along and let you guys know what my best practice is, but you have to do what's best for you. Thank you so much. I'm going to try not to touch my hair too a lot. Last live, my mom called me when we got off of it, and she was like, "You're gonna have to quit touching your hair so much on the live. You're driving me crazy." I said, "Yes, mama," because that's what you do. You just say yes, mama, and go on. So I bought a brand new box of epoxy because I want you guys to see, like, start to finish, how I do everything. I don't want you to have any questions. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer it. If you are watching this on YouTube, this has been recorded live in the Patron group. I will include all of our products, information into the Patron group in the description box for this project, and it is a lot of fun, and it's super good for introduction into epoxy. So I get my epoxy from Hobby Lobby. And you want to make sure that you get the amazing clear cast, and somewhere on the box, according to what box they have, this is the biggest box that they sell. They also sell smaller boxes or different sizes or different brands, but you want to make sure that somewhere on the box, whether it be, it's usually generally down at the bottom, or in this case it's at the top, and it says FDA 21 CFR. What that means, that FDA, it means that it's FDA compliant. There are no epoxies that are FDA approved, but they are FDA compliant, which means that they are food grade. So that's why we're able to put it on our tumblers and put it on our cups, and we can use it, but I always use a lid. No, don't. So I love Alumilite, and if you've seen some of my older videos, you may see me talking about art resin or different kinds of epoxy. There's Promarine, there's art resin, there's Alumilite, there's something called Faux Rizzle, and I've never used that one before. I've tried them, the top three, and Alumilite is just my favorite. It is the cheapest. You can also buy a small thing of art resin. It's like, I can't remember how much it is, but it's double or triple the price of Alumilite. And during these cold months, I love the Alumilite. It cures so much faster. Art resin is supposed to, or art resin is a lot more expensive, like I said, but it takes about 3 days to cure in my cabinets, when I can just ship off cups almost immediately. I let them cure for 2 days before I ship them off, but I love, love, love the Alumilite. So I wanted to show you, like I said, just start to finish. So this is a brand new box, and I'm just gonna open it. And your box of epoxy, when you buy this, you can buy this online. You can buy this at Hobby Lobby, or I think Michael's too. And these come with already kind of like an automatic pump, you know. These have these tips that you can work with. You also get a popsicle stick and some medicine cups in your box, but I'll show you what I use instead of these small cups, because I mean, I epoxy so much more than what this can hold. So I will show you what I use. So to open up this epoxy, they do have a seal underneath. So just take the cap off, and you're going to, yeah, sometimes you can be allergic to one brand or have an allergy to one brand and not the other. And so you just have to do what works for you, what's best for you. Sometimes these are even like area temperamental. And what I mean by that is, depending on the temperature of where you live, one may work better than the other. But during the summer, I used art resin, and I had a great experience with it, but during the winter, I have not. So to take this off, it also has another safety precaution, a backup safety, and I'm just gonna take a pair of scissors and cut the tip of the cap. Okay, so part B is ready to use. So if you do touch these epoxies, A or B, they are not going to, they're not going to harden. So if you just accidentally poured all of A, that is not going to cure. It has to mix with B. They mix, one is a, let's see what it is officially called. Okay, well, on the other ones, one is like a resin and one is a hardener or something like that. Let me get this one off. Ow. Matt, I need you again. Come take this lid off for me. Thankfully, it's not like a pickle jar or like a grape jelly jar. Okay. So I don't want this to be like a painstaking process that you have to watch me unbox this epoxy, but I wanted you to know, truly start to finish, you know, without question, I just want you to be comfortable. So again, I'm just going to cut the tip off of this one. So if you are a beginner with epoxy, I would give yourself a small hole, because obviously the more you, the bigger you cut these, the faster it's gonna flow. And the most important part to your epoxy is having a 1-to-1 ratio. You'll see that on your box and your instructions. And what that means is it has to be perfectly equally mixed. Now, when I first started epoxy, I went as deep as measuring it on a postal scale. Like, oh, this is 0.2 ounces off. But as you go along and you get more comfortable with this, you will see that if you just eyeball it, they'll teach you if you're ever measuring something in chemistry or in school or anything to do with liquids, you need to get eye level to truly see your level and where everything is at, because it can be deceiving if you just are looking over your product. Okay, so I try to keep them beside each other, each cup beside each other, so I don't get mixed up, because it's happened. I've been like, oh no, which one did I pour into which? So I keep them beside each other. One is thicker than the other, and you'll see that when you're pouring out. When Alumilite A is the thicker of the two epoxies, and it pours slower. So I'll start with A, and you may question, how much epoxy do I need to mix up for these molds, or how much do I need to mix up for my project? It varies. If I'm doing a glitter cup, let's play a game where every time I touch my hair, somebody get on to me. If you're mixing a glitter cup, you will use a lot more epoxy than you would do if you were using or covering a flat cup like a painted cup. Okay, because the glitter is just going to soak in that epoxy. Epoxy is self-leveling, so that means that it's going to seep down into the surface so it gets an even cure. And that's why we do it on the cup turners. That's why we have to have the cup turners for the cups and the epoxy, because it has to be constantly spinning or it'll create those drips if you see people post about. So I'm going to start with this A side. And let me pull you guys down so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to start with A and just pour it into my cup. And I'm going to mix this up a pretty good batch so we can do 2 different molds. So I'm going to fill just about halfway. Alright, and that is A. And then now I'm going to do the B side. And this one pours much faster. Okay, I'm going to move them back to make sure that they're level. And this is your most important part, the mixing, and to make sure that they are perfectly even. And then I just add, keep adding to you will not get a hard cure, it'll be like a tacky cure. And that's one way you know that your epoxy is not mixed correctly. Okay. All right. So it looks like I have an even amount in each cup. So you will not be able to save this. I thought to myself when I first got started, I thought, how can I save my epoxy if I've mixed too much up? Well, you can't. So that's where the molds came in. When I very first started cups, I didn't know how much epoxy to mix for each cup. Now I can kind of take a guess. It's kind of like my mother teaching me how to cook. She can't teach me how to cook really, because she just knows the ingredients. She knows how much salt, she knows how much sugar. She can't tell me. If I call her up and say, Mom, I'm gonna make cornbread, how do you make it? She can't tell me because she just has to be there to make it. Does that make sense? So, cornbread, that's a southern thing. I had to do it. I just had to. So when I'm mixing my 2 epoxies, I pour the thinner side into the thicker side, just simply because it's easier to mix that way. It runs out quicker. So I'll go ahead and put on my gloves, because this is when your epoxy starts to mix and you don't want it to get onto your skin. If it does get onto your skin, you want to wash it immediately when I'm doing cups, I usually have my hair pulled up and everything protected, because if it gets on your shirt, if it gets on your shoes, if it gets on your cabinets, you will... Good, I'm glad y'all like cornbread. My patrons are loving the cornbread. It will ruin your clothing and your shoes and everything else. So just make sure that you get yourself cleaned up if epoxy comes in contact with you. So I'm going to mix let me pull you down. And I'm going to mix the A into B. And you can just see how fast that pours. The B is a lot thicker. But you want to make sure when you do these that you scrape the sides, because I think that the cup's empty, but then look how much you can get when you scrape the sides with a popsicle stick. It's a lot. Okay. One other question that I have had is, what can I use that I can reuse and reuse instead of the cups or the popsicle sticks? They are super, super cheap, but if you want to be environmentally friendly, anything with silicone is, let me see, can be used with epoxy. So you can get little silicone cups, or you can get silicone spatulas or something like that, you know, to mix these together. So when you first start mixing them together, you'll see that it is cloudy, and that is normal. You just want to keep mixing until it is not cloudy anymore. If you mix too fast, you will create bubbles for your epoxy, and you will see that in your cups or in your molds or whatever. Oh, hey! So this is where my warm water comes in. This is a little tip that I have figured out works for me, and it works so good, and it is so fast. So I have my child's, I don't know, this is one of those snack things that you're not supposed to be able to spill. They spill, or my child does. So I fill this up with warm water, and I put my epoxy cup into the warm water. It starts to warm it up. Epoxy naturally has a warming factor to it, so when you mix it up, it creates a little bit of warmth, but I can already see my bubbles starting to rise to the top and start to pop off out of the epoxy. So this makes it thinner, it makes it easier to work with, and it makes less bubbles. This has been a lifesaver for me. If you are an ultimate patron, you know that one of your perks is you get a tumbler each month, and so I have capped it out at 30 because that's just, that's how many I can comfortably make. I do not want to skimp on quality or value for you guys, so I've capped it out at 30. So making 30 cups plus cups a month, this has been my #1 go-to pro tip. It has made my process so much faster. You want warm water, you don't want it to be hot, but I find that you can mix it faster and you have less bubbles, if that makes sense. So any of my pro cup makers, I want you to try this trick, and I want you to tell me if this works for you. Like I said, I can find that, I mean, it's almost ready now, and usually I'll spin it like super slow. There are things on the market called epoxy mixers now, and I don't know anything about those. So I may have a question come up about those, and I'll just go ahead and tell you I'm an old-fashioned girl, and I'm just gonna mix my epoxy. So I don't let it just sit in it, but I just let it, you know, get warm, and I may just leave it here and get my cups ready or do whatever else I need to do. But you know, I have talked so much that now the water is cooling off, And in that case, if I wasn't on film with you guys, I would just pour it out and make some more warm water and do the same thing. But this really has been a huge game changer. I have 0 bubbles in my epoxy after this gets going. And then, like I said, I may let it sit and get a few things ready, or change gloves, or do whatever I need to do, and I'll leave it for a few minutes. But it says on your epoxy instructions what your work time is and what your cure time is, and it may vary with each epoxy. So some videos, you know, it may say that you can put your cup into the warm water as you let it sit for about 10 minutes. I've seen that often. So that's why I started doing this, was from another video. But now I've started mixing it in this little snack bowl, and y'all, it is a game changer. It works so good, and 0, 0, 0, 0 bubbles. And look how fast. Usually I would have to stir real slow, but if you'll just scrape the sides again, because it does like to hold on to each other. Okay, so now we're ready to go. That may seem like a painstaking process, and it may seem like it takes a while to mix your epoxy or to get it together, but let me tell you, that's the most important part of your project, is making sure that your epoxy is mixed correctly and measured correctly, or you will not get a solid product. So these coasters, and like I said, I will put all of the links to all of the products. These coasters are super, super, super hard. You can, I mean, it's like you were to just, I don't know. They cure so hard, and they're perfect, and you want them to be. Yes, I want you to do it and test it out and let me know what you think. Snack bowls. Snack bowls, y'all, it's the key. Also, I really like if you can't find a snack bowl, I also like the styrofoam little mini cups. Like, they're bigger than the little hygiene cups. I just get these at Walmart in the sleeves, or on a medical website, but you can get these anywhere. But I do like them to be clear so that I can see. But I like the styrofoam cups that are just like a little bit bigger than this, and put the water in that, and then it's so much faster. So now is the time for the glitter, and you can see how shiny these are. One tip I wanted to tell you guys is that if your silicone mold, did y'all hear the thunder? If your silicone mold is matte, then your project is if I touch my face, don't worry, I don't have any epoxy on my hands yet. I don't want you to have anxiety. If your silicone mold is matte, then your project will be matte. If your silicone mold is shiny, see how shiny that is? Then your project will be shiny. I have a I have a geometric heart mold, and it's one of my favorites. It is so beautiful, but it's a matte finish, and I could not figure out why they were the only matte mold that I had, but it was because the mold itself was matte. So if you give a shiny mold, then you'll have a shiny project. Now, if you want your mold to be shiny, or you want your project to be shiny, I like to use Rust-Oleum clear coat, and you can just spray it with a clear coat, and you're good to go. It'll give that shine to it. It doesn't have the natural shine, so you're not going to get the pure shine of the glitter, but it will make it a little bit shinier. Okay, so now we're ready to mix up our glitter. So because I have so many hexagon, let's go ahead and just do a hexagon, because that's my favorite. I found a link for you guys that is just hexagon molds, and those are my favorite. If you spill anything on your, like if you spill any of the epoxy onto your mold, like I said, you can wait for it to cure and it will come up. So I'm going to get a separate cup for this, and if you guys can't see anything, let me know, because I want you to be able to see everything. I'm going to go ahead and, because the purple was so beautiful, I'll show that to you in just a second. I don't want you to miss that one because I did something really cool with it that you guys have been asking about. I want to use this again, and it's the Barbados from Backfist Customs. It's part of his glitter collection. You can add as much or as a little glitter as you want to this. If you add too little, your mold might be a little see-through, but if you add too much glitter to your epoxy, it might get too thick and cake up and you can't pour it. But if that is the case, you can just add more epoxy to it. But I do like to work with the same epoxy batch, which means that if I was to work with this one and then, you know, in 30 minutes, if I decide that I want to make something else, that's going to have a different cure rate, even just that 30 minutes. So I make sure that I try to use the same batch, if that makes sense. And you can use any mold that you find. If you're at the grocery store or Hobby Lobby and you find candy molds or ice cube molds or anything like that, as long as it is silicone, you can use it. For the shop, I found on Amazon, and I will link it for you guys because it is such a cool find. I can't believe I didn't think of it before because I've made such a mess in my kitchen. But it's just a silicone mat, a pink silicone mat, and I think it's like, I don't want to say the size because I can't remember, but if I get anything on that mat, that's, my mail hasn't ran yet, but, and it'll be here today. If you get anything on that mat, then you can just pick it right up. So I'm going to go ahead and pour some epoxy into this one, and I'm going to fill all 3 molds. Okay, I can already tell I need more. I'm just a glitter kind of girl, y'all. Okay. So, when you're mixing in your glitter with your epoxy, you don't have to be... There's my mailman. He's a day late and $1 short. Okay. You just want to have the consistency of it being able to pour. So, I have this mixed up. And now I'm going to pour it into our mold. I start in the center, like I said, because the epoxy is self-leveling. So it's going to push itself out to the sides. This Barbados is so beautiful. And if you don't have any of our, you know, our favorite glitters, Backfist Customs or Peachy Olive, you can use craft store glitters or any glitters that you have if you just want to practice with epoxy and you don't have any bought yet. Any glitter is fine. But because you are patrons, we do have discounts, and they are in the announcement section of our private group. So you can see that I just want to show you that there is a little spot. Tell me if you can't see it. There is a little spot right, well, here that is not filled with the epoxy on the rim. But you can watch that the epoxy is meeting itself right there. And if it doesn't get there, if you don't have enough mixed up, you can move this around. It's completely liquid right now, and you can move it to be more even. So now we have an even pour. All right. Okay, so let's do another one. I know this purple, y'all, is beautiful. It really is. So before we do another one, I want to show you what I did with our first purple. I'm just going to move this to the side here. A lot of you had the question of, can you put vinyl on your mold or the coaster or whatever it is, and how can you seal it? So last night I did a test, and I made a cut with our Grace and Grit SVG that is exclusive to you guys with the holographic, this is Cricut holographic. and I poured just a little tiny bit of epoxy while it was flat. So I had the epoxy just like, I had the mold just like this with the vinyl pressed down into it. And then I poured just a little bit of epoxy into this until it was flat on each surface. And you cannot feel this at all. Like it's pretty much like, it's like pressed into the glitter because you can't feel it at all. And you can see with the shine that there is no break. And it's awesome, y'all. So now it's completely covered. It is completely sealed. So what you would do is you wait 8 hours. That's key. You want to wait 8 hours because these are bendable and pliable before 8 hours. And even then, if you pull it out and you can still bend it a little bit, it's not the end of the world. You just want to let it sit for a while until it gets hard enough to where you can't bend, but then you can cut your vinyl and then pour a little bit. And this is, like I said, this is the Grace and Grit, and I know it's backwards. Let me see. I know it's backwards to you guys. Hold on, give me one sec. There we go. But it is completely under the epoxy. So if I was doing this again and I could see, you could see that the epoxy is not maybe covering, you can take your gloved hand and just kind of smooth over your vinyl. That's what I do with cups. I make sure to really smooth that down and work that around the vinyl, because if you think about it, vinyl does have sides to it. You know, each little cut has a side. So you want to make sure that you fill that with epoxy. Does that make sense? And you just rub it down. I just poured it in the middle and then it you know, pushes its way out. So that one turned out, let me turn you guys back around. That one turned out really good, and I'm excited for you guys to try that project. So the next thing is, let's just mix another one up real quick, just because I wanted to see. I've never used this. I think Kenzie might have this glitter, but this is Rosie Gold Guac from Peachy Olive, and this is like the most perfect rose gold mix. So it means that it's not extra fine and it's not chunky. It's just a mix of all kinds of shapes in here, and these are wonderful to work with. But some people might have trouble with it with tumblers, so they're discouraged from chunky glitter. But don't be, because oh my gosh, it gives you the most beautiful effect. This one is Sugar Mama from Backfist Customs, and you can see there's bigger pieces and smaller pieces, and that is a chunky mix. So Barbados is like a mix too, because it doesn't have, it's not just extra fine. So I'm just gonna mix this up and then pour this in. Oh wow, this does have a lot of pink in it. I may add more because, like I said, I just like it to be sparkly. But you can always add more, because I mean that's actually pretty good. Okay, so now I'm gonna bring you down, and we're going to pour this into the mold, into the center. Oh man, I'm excited to show you guys this one after it dries. And then we'll just let this dry for 8 hours. It'll let it cure. Perfect. And it does need a little bit of moving around, so I'm just going to kind of manipulate it, move it, just so it covers all of the mold, and then once it's level, it'll level itself out. So that one is beautiful. I love that one. And we'll see how that one works out. And then the molds that I got, that was Rosie Gold Guac from Peachy Olive Glitters. The molds that I got, it comes with a set of 3, and I also have just the hexagon molds. But and I loved them both, but the hexagons are my favorite. But then I also got a circle. So when you get these molds, it'll have two sides to it. It has a like a blank side, and it has a ridge around it, and also it has a back side, and this one is kind of like a brace. So once you put your epoxy on, this needs to go on the bottom. It has the square, the circle, and the hexagon, or like I said, you can get just the hexagon set. I love them all and love them both. So sometimes when I mix my epoxy up and I'm putting them on my cups, I may just have a little bit of epoxy left, not enough to do a mold, not enough to, but too much to throw away, you know what I mean? So I've started layering. This pink, or well, it's kind of like a purple. It's raspberry shards from Backfist Customs, and I think purple haze from the Glitter Gallery is in the middle. I just had a very small amount and poured it into it. I mean, I'm talking about just enough to cover the bottom of the cup, and you can see how much it spread out and even to the sides. And then the next one, I just took a tiny little toothpick amount and spread it down to both sides of the pink, like the next day. And then the very last day, because like I said, I had this mold sitting here and I didn't want to waste the epoxy. So like the third day, I sound like my daughter. So like the third day, I had this Bejeweled from Peachy Olive and put it on the outside, and I really like the way this looks. So this is just layered. You can mix colors. You can really have all the creative freedom in the world with these. They're so much fun to make. Sherry, one of our patrons, have started selling these as a coaster and tumbler set, and she offers them as an add-on with her purchase, you know, with her tumblers. I think that is a great idea. These are great gifts to give. You could put one of our patron SVGs about, I think last week I showed you guys I put my paper clips in mine in my office. You can put your trinkets in it. You can put your rings and your jewelry and your earrings, or just whatever you want it to be. It can sit by your bed, or you can use it as it's supposed to be used, as a coaster, and it just sit on your desk and be beautiful. So thank you for watching. I will now cut this video off for YouTube and answer questions for my patrons. If you have any questions at all, feel free to drop them in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for more tutorials. So let's mix one more.